The U.S. issued some of its strongest statements yet Friday, saying the Syrian government was behind an apparent chemical attack. U.S. intelligence estimates that at least 42 people died in the attack last weekend in the suburb of Douma. Many of the victims showed symptoms consistent with exposure to chlorine gas. Still, the White House said Friday that talks about a possible response are ongoing. Our David Martin reports all signs are that U.S. military forces are gearing up for a strike.
The strike could be carried out by long-range missiles launched from submarine ships or aircraft at Syrian military installations. But Vladimir Putin's top general has vowed to shoot down any missiles which threaten Russian personnel in Syria. The strike would come less than a week after a suspected chemical weapons attack the White House blames on both Syria and Russia.
We're again confident that both Syria had responsibility in this chemical weapons attack, but we also hold Russia responsible for their failure to stop chemical weapons attacks from taking place.
Both Great Britain and France appear ready to join the strike. Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, said all three countries have concluded chemical weapons were used.
Did a chemical weapons attack happen? Yes. The U.S. has analyzed, yes, it has happened. The UK has analyzed, yes, it has happened. France has analyzed, yes, it has happened. Three separate analyses, all coming back with the same thing. There is proof that this happened.
Videos and blood samples indicate victims suffered symptoms consistent with both chlorine gas and a nerve agent. Ambassador Haley told the UN Security Council Syria's President Assad has a history of using chemical weapons.
The United States estimates that Assad has used chemical weapons in the Syrian war at least 50 times. We know who did this. Our allies know who did this. Russia can complain all it wants about fake news, but no one is buying its lies and its cover-ups.
This would be the second time the U.S. has struck Syria in retaliation for the use of chemical weapons. The aim would be to do more damage than last time, but without hitting any Russians, who will probably be given a last-minute heads up that missiles are coming. Tanya?
David, so I guess now that the U.S. and its allies have mostly reached a consensus that Syria is responsible for this attack, it's likely that an airstrike or some joint military response is imminent?
It seems that it's some sort of military attack involving the U.S., Britain, and France, probably all firing long-range missiles from a variety of ships, even submarines and aircraft, is very near. Whether it happens tonight remains to be seen, but it is clear that we are in the closing stages of the march toward military action.
With so much telegraphing of the plans, though, at this point, hasn't Syria already had plenty of time to prepare and to minimize the damage?
Well, they've certainly been able to disperse some of their equipment. For instance, the helicopters that were based at the airfield, which is believed to have dropped the chemical weapons on that neighborhood outside Damascus, that airfield has emptied out. Some of the aircraft have gone to the civilian airport at Damascus on the assumption, I assume, that the U.S. will not strike a civilian target. But you can't move buildings. And the U.S. can obviously still target a lot of facilities that belong to the Syrian military.
All right. David, a team of chemical weapons investigators is set to begin work in Douma on Saturday. But Russia on Friday accused Britain of staging the attack. What is Russia's motivation in deflecting blame here?
Well, it's the old throw a little sand in your eye, put enough other possible interpretations of the facts out there, and it doesn't really matter who believes them and who doesn't, but you're just confusing the issue. And for some people who don't follow the news closely, that's probably enough.
And quickly, David, if the U.S. does decide against military action at this point, would that harm its reputation in the international community?
I think once the commander-in-chief tweets that missiles are coming, if missiles don't come, that would be perceived as the Commander-in-Chief of the United States bluffing, and that is something that no Commander-in-Chief of the United States should do. Remember how heavily criticized President Obama was when he failed to carry through on a strike against Syria after he said they had crossed the red line of using chemical weapons.
Absolutely. David Martin at the Pentagon, thank you.
Sure thing.